Hello and welcome. Greetings in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Today we'll look at the passage which talks about God's love. And this is the passage where Jesus explains God's love. And he is explaining it through a story. It's a very famous story. It's called the story of the Prodigal Son. So let me read from Luke chapter 15, verse 11 onwards. Jesus continued, "There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, 'Father, give me my share of the estate.' So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, 'How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and here I am, starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.' So he got up and went to his father. The son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' So they began to celebrate. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. 'Your brother has come,' he replied, 'and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound.' The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, 'Look, all these years I have been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who has squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him.' 'My son,' the father said, 'you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we have to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' This passage clearly delineates many aspects about the relationship between God and man. The first part of the story, dealing with the separation of the property and the son going away to a distant country, shows the root of all sin. It shows the rebellion of man against God. The youngest son's rebellion is a picture of the rebellion of humanity against God, the quest for autonomy from God. The root of all sin is the quest for autonomy and a life lived autonomously from God. The root of all sin is saying, I want to do whatever I want to do. And saying to God, I don't need you. And I'm not going to do what you tell me to do. That is the basis, foundation of all sin. The best way to look at it is to look at it as a fish which wants autonomy from water. Autonomy from water means death to the fish. Autonomy from God is spiritual death to us human beings. As water is to the fish, God is to us. As Paul says in Marcel, we move and live and have our being in Him. Now after the son divides the property, takes his share, he doesn't stay at home. He now leaves home. He goes to a distant country and there squanders his wealth in wild living. It's like taking a share of your property from your father and going off to Las Vegas or Paris or Amsterdam and spending all your property on prostitutes and gambling and the pleasures of sin. That's exactly what the second son did. And that's exactly what we do. We want to live our life our way, spending it on sinful pleasures, temporary pleasures, and in the process we squander our life. We are not just running away from God, we are destroying our own lives. When we live autonomous from God and from the plan of God, we are destroying ourselves. Autonomy from God is spiritual death to us. Now, after he spent everything on gambling and with prostitutes, he began to be in need. He didn't invest it in any good business, nor did he even have a fixed deposit which would have returned him a decent interest. No, he didn't do any of this.